Thank you. I'd just like to start by thanking SIS for the chance to be here today. It's my first trip to Mexico. I've been very fortunate to travel the whole world working in football for the last 30 years. Never made it to Mexico, so thank you very much for that, and thank you for listening. I have 20 minutes now to tell you about sports science and how we use that in football, and I'll talk about European football. I would just like to say buenas noches. That's actually my body saying buenas noches. I have no idea if it's morning, noon, or night. I went to bed at 12 o'clock midnight. I woke up, I stayed in my bed, which felt like for 6 hours. I looked at my clock, it was 2 a.m. But what that did allow me to do was reflect on what I listened to yesterday, which was quite interesting for me because very sports science background. I'm used to going to sports science conferences. Fan engagement. In my role, I get on a team bus, I go to the stadium, I get off the bus, I go into the changing room, I go out and play a game for 90 minutes, back in the bus, and back to the hotel. So what's happening with the stadiums is mind-blowing and very, very exciting. And I've put blue seats there because apparently what we learned yesterday is you can change the color of the seats based on the people sitting in them. So I can go to my seat, and my seat can suddenly turn blue if I'm a VIP. That blew my mind. Fan experience and player load. It's an interesting one. Players need fans, and fans need players. And Peter talked about the experience of the players having access, of the fans having access to the players. And it really is a fine line because, for example, the changing room for us is sacred. We don't want, that's where we work, that's our workplace. We don't want fans having access to there, but we want to interact with the fans. So it's a very delicate balance between fan experience and player availability. The insights table I saw yesterday from IBM, that blew me away. It's something I want one. I'm going to put that straight in my budget when I get back. Halo talked about the brain. I'm going to talk about the brain very briefly, but it was a very, very interesting presentation. Somebody, and I won't mention who, mentioned at dinner, what would be your best organization? So if you could say, what is the best organization working in football today, what would that be? And it got me thinking. And it really is an interesting question because we don't really know what a best organization looks like. And I kind of, for the 6 hours I was awake last night, kind of said, well, actually some of the things I do in Sweden, some of the things I do in Leicester, if I could put them together, maybe that's a really good organization. But having the vision to know what a best organization looks like. And then finally, mutant football. I don't know how many of you were left here for the last session. That blew me away completely. I'm not into gaming, but mutant football really is something else. If you weren't here yesterday, I suggest you take a look at it. So my background is I'm a sports scientist. I spend 3 weeks of the month in Stockholm working with the Swedish national team. I've been there for the last, I moved to Stockholm in 1989. I've been with the national team for since 1998. I think I've been with them for about 250 games. I'm the sports scientist, I'm the performance analyst, which means we're a small country. So I jump on the field and do the warm-up. I run up the stairs and film the game. I run back down at halftime and work with the subs. I run back up and film. And then at the end of the game, I run back down to the grass. It's a job I wouldn't change for the whole world. At Leicester City, I travel over to Leicester for 1 week every month. I have a team of 10 sports scientists and performance analysts that I head up. So very operational on the grass, working with the Swedish team, very more head of department, mentor type of role with Leicester. So what I said, what we're going to do now in the next 15 minutes is talk about sports science, football and science, quite general, a little bit more specific about Leicester City, and then just have a quick look into the future. So the two things as a sports scientist, actually somebody said, what does a sports scientist do? Well, the two key words for me are injuries and performance. So I'm trying to reduce injuries and improve performance. This is some quite startling figures. This is the amount of money we pay to injured players every year. So the Master Baseball, $700 million we pay to injured players every year. $450 million in the NFL, $350 million in the NBA, and about $300 million in the Premier League. And about 40% of those are deemed to be avoidable. And in the Premier League, the number of injuries hasn't changed. The average number of injuries hasn't changed over the last 11 years. 11 years. So there's a lot of money there being spent on injured players. And this is one of the key messages here, that we believe, or we know, and the way we work in Leicester, is that fit, robust, and healthy players form the foundation for success. So if you have this pyramid of performance, the foundation is fit, robust, and healthy players. So my role, my job description, I need to get players fit, I need to make them robust, and I need to keep them healthy. Quite simple, huh? This is a mind-blowing diagram. So just talk you through it very quickly. This is a top European side. And these are their injury stats over the last 15 years. So this is availability. So this is percentage availability of the players in the squad. So 100% means all the players are available to play games throughout the whole season. So this is a season average. So in 2001, 2002, this team had 85% of their players available to play games, and so on. The red line is the UEFA Champions League average. So there's studies that take the average values for the Champions League side. So just to make that a little bit easier on the eye, we'll say where the bar is green, it means that this team performed better in the injury statistics than the Champions League average. If it's red, it means they were worse. If it yellows, it means they're about the same. So now we're going to do a little bit of betting. I'm going to give you 7. We're in the casino, and you're going to have 7, I don't bet, but whatever they're called, chips. And we're going to put your first chip on where you think this club won its first trophy in these 15 years. Oh, very good. Next chip goes on where it won its next trophy. And the next trophy. Oh, the next trophy. This is real data. This isn't made-up data. You going to go for the next one? Why not? No, surely not. Oh, not quite. So this is quite an empowering diagram about how important injuries are for success. So they build the foundation for success. They build the foundation for success. They don't guarantee it. I'm not sure what you see when you see a football game. This is what I see. This is my passion. This is my love. This is what I've studied for 30 years. This is intermittent exercise. And what we see here, this is velocity and duration. So it's a time velocity curve. And we call this intermittent exercise. And it means that our players are constantly, during a game of soccer, they're either standing still, they're walking, they're running, jogging, or get up to speeds of about 9 meters per second. So this is important for us working in science to understand intermittent exercise. The problem we have, though, is on top of this, we need strength, power, and speed, and endurance to be a good soccer player. And it's very hard to evaluate. So somehow we kind of have to evaluate performance out of this bunch of squiggly lines. And it's very difficult. And it's difficult because if I'm looking for a KPI of physical performance during a soccer game, we see that the top teams in the Premier League run less at the higher speeds than the other teams. So we can't say if I run more at high speed, I'm better, because the top teams tend to run less. If we compare the Champions League to the Bundesliga, Premier League, and League One, during the Champions League, they run less. So Champions League is meant to be the best standard of football. It obviously is because Leicester play in the Champions League. But again, they run less. And in terms of total distance, we've got a little chap here called Messi, who runs 1 kilometer during a game more than the goalkeeper. And he runs about 50%, and this is just one game. So the problem we have is an injury stat is a good KPI for us, but it's much harder for us to evaluate physical performance. And this is where the brain comes in, and this is something that it's in the later years. These are two players who, the first one said, football is played with your brains, not with your feet. You can stop running for long periods of the game. However, what you can never do is stop thinking. So for me, when I evaluate performance, I have to have a combination of the physical performance, but also the decision making. Now up here, we have an estimate that a player will make at least 1,000 decisions during a game. Now, that's moderate. We think it could be up around 3,000 or 4,000 decisions during a game. Of course, not all with the ball, but very important decisions. Just very quickly look at this goal from the other night.
Quanto con I suoi giocatori della linea difensiva. C'è un'energia pazzesca ora all'Etihad. David Silva la sfrutta. Per Aguero, controllo, tocco corto. Sané! Sané!
So this is Manchester City against Monaco, two of the top teams in Europe. At this point, just before the goal is scored, the score is 4-3 to Manchester City. So Monaco actually could be quite happy with 4-3. These are top-class players. So this is 20 seconds before the goal is scored. Now, most coaches will say, I'm reasonably happy. I'm a little bit unsure what this guy's doing, but in terms of tactics, that's actually not a bad shape. And I apologize if you don't know football, but those of you who know football say, okay, I'm quite happy about that. Look at this 20 seconds later. There are 9 Monaco players watching the ball and are not aware of where the Manchester City players are. So what they've done is they've stopped thinking because they know better than that because they're good players. So this is where the mental side of the game and the decision making is so important, and it's very difficult to measure. So just very quickly summarizing that part, many injuries are avoidable. Healthy, fit and robust players are the foundation for success. And if we're looking at KPIs, we need to have a combination of physical performance and mental performance. And I think this is going to come more and more in the future. So what about Leicester City? Well, we built our success last season on fit, healthy and robust players. So our stats said that the average of player availability was 96%. So it meant that we averaged 1 injured player per game for the whole season. We only used 18 players in the whole season. And for those of you who know football, this isn't this year's Premier League table. This is last year's table of injury statistics. So we won the injury statistics table. This year is actually not looking too bad. So again, this is the Champions League average. We're in December back up to 95%. Now, we're not as successful this year as last year, so it's a foundation for success. It's not a guarantee for success. This is a key picture for anyone who wants to work in science and team sports. And what we have here is in order to get a high performance, we need an optimal load. And it's a training load and a match load. And this optimal load here will give us a high performance. If the load is too low or too high, we won't get an optimal performance. And we can keep this curve here and say it's the same for injuries. If the load is too low, we'll increase the risk of injury. If the load is too high, we'll increase the risk of injury. So a lot of what we do at Leicester and a lot of what sports science in team sports is about now is load management. And the load is is all the training, all the matches. So if we look at the load during a week, it'll be all the training sessions we do in that week, and it will be the match or matches we play in that week, and it will be all the running we do, obviously with and without the ball, the volume of the running, the intensity of the running, and also the gym work. And this is a big challenge for us we know we're after an optimal load, but it's a big challenge for us to quantify that. And those of you who work in team sports obviously understand that. And we've got this small problem about, we work with 25 individuals, very different, some with high power, low endurance, some with low endurance, high power, and they'll have different demands during a game. This guy could be 17, it could be his first year in the Premier League. This guy could be 37, it could be his 20th season in the Premier League. So not only do we have this theory of this optimal load, but now we have to try and find it for every single player in the squad. And this is where we need to be innovative. And when I first accepted the invitation to come here, I thought, well, what is innovation? Now we define innovation as significant positive change, and it's crucial for continuous success. So that's our definition of innovation. And we feel we live up to it as a team. This is my team, or some of them. So I have 10 people working with me in performance analysis and sports science, and then we have probably another 7 or 8 in the medical unit. Now, so we say Leicester won the Premier League by creating an effective bond between playing staff, coaching staff, and indeed medicine and sports science. So the foundation for everything we did last season was built around fit, healthy, and robust players. And we like to pride ourselves in we're open-minded as a staff, and we're able to collaborate with ourselves, but more importantly with the manager and with the coaching staff. And again, this is an interesting slide, and this kind of where it all comes together with technology or no technology. Now, Tom here is asking a player how well he slept last night. There's some basic sleep questions. Now, we all know that with a simple armband today, I can know exactly how he slept. I know when he fell asleep, how long he slept for, and when he woke up. The problem there is we lose communication with our players. So this study here says that over 80% of sports in Australia use self-reporting to monitor fatigue. So they actually communicate with their athletes. And I see the time's running short, but this is a huge, an interesting avenue that we need to be careful with, that we don't go down the technology route at the expense of communication with our athletes. And one of the big things at Leicester City is we have player empowerment. And what I mean by that, we empower our players to take responsibility for their own bodies. So we don't have strength at 10:30, strength training at 10:30. Some players may come in and do their strength before training. Some players may stay after training and do their strength work. It means they have more time with a strength and power coach, and they can choose it to suit their needs. Now, if they don't turn up for that session, we say, well, fine. This is for you, it's not for us. And we're still working on the model, but it's a key point to one of the reasons we were successful and are still successful, is we've empowered our players. So, at the medical and sports science staff, our KPI last year was 96% player availability. We empower our players, we communicate with our players. And we have a collaborative approach with the whole staff. And that's not as easy as it sounds. So we have the medical staff, the sports science staff, and the coaching staff. So just to finish off, just a little look into the future. Technology. Wow. Just in the last 5 years, so much has happened. this is an interesting one with the iPad, is that we can use it to communicate with our players. Now I'm conscious about apps, and one of the things that our the coaches of our youngsters are saying is that they're spending so much time in the telephone is that they're losing the skills to communicate. So again, technology is going to help us, but we need to be careful how we use it. This is an example of a bespoke team sport solution. Now, strangely enough, we have a problem asking a player to take off or put on a unit to sync it up with their iPhone and to send us data. It's not that straightforward, and we're not actually sure whether we want that. And this is a really interesting place we're in at the moment. This is a great quote. I worked with Zlatan for 16 years. Fantastic football player, fantastic person. He really is a fantastic person. I can't help but laugh at how perfect I am. This guy's no normal person, and a lot of the players we work with aren't normal people. And we have to get the balance right between working with artists and machines. We don't want to turn all our players into machines. We have to leave room for our artists. And then finally, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the coaches coming through now, because they need to be progressive leaders. They need to be able to work with mavericks under them. People are going to challenge them. People are going to come with them with data. They're going to have to be more democratic. They're going to have to delegate responsibility. So a team behind the team now can be up to 25 people. So we're actually in the team photo, we can be more staff than players. So the responsibility of the manager or the head coach is changing dynamically. So bespoke technology for team sports. They're out there, and it's going to just grow even more in the next 5 years. We need to be careful we don't turn all our players into machines. We need to allow room for the artists. And the team behind the team is growing. I've literally got 1 minute, sorry. So in England now, there are 82 universities that offer sports science degrees. When I grew up, when I studied, I think we were certainly single figures. 82 universities and colleges now in the UK offer sports science degrees. So, the question I asked was, science supporting football, a non-value cost or a wise investment? So what I've tried to do in the last 20 minutes is say that innovative science supporting football is a wise investment. So innovation is crucial for continued success. Crucial. We have to be innovative. Healthy, fit, and robust players, that's the foundation for success. It doesn't guarantee success, it's the foundation for success. And please, 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 those of you who are working in sports, don't forget the human factor. It's so important. We need progressive leaders, and the artists, we need artists. Thank you very much.